Shalom. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Dalmar Chabad Center, and today we have a very special guest with us, Mr. Morris Gerber. He is a man of many hats. One of the things that most people know him about is the pictorial history of Albany's Jewish community. He is the author, and it's in this 5 volumes so far. It's being constantly redone and revamped, and just going through all the pictures, one can see that it took a lot of effort on Mr. Gerber's part to write and to keep this book up to date. Together with that, Mr. Gerber also is the president of Temple Israel's Men's Club. And a new job, he's now the director of the Genealogical Society of the Capital District.
Jewish genealogy.
Jewish genealogy, all right. Well, that comes without mentioning over here.
There's 2 groups here. One is Jewish and the other is non-Jewish.
All right. Well, we assume everything's Jewish by you, Mr. Gerber, so there's nothing repetitious about that. Well, I'd like to, first of all, we'll describe, there's so many things that we could talk to you about. I'd like to talk to you about the Albany Jewish community, its history, and really its start, and I guess its heyday around the turn of the century, and its heyday, maybe it's going now also. It's a very special time. But according to your history, you have many pictures of these times, of the 1900s, 1920s, 1930s. I know for myself that I'm only here for a few years in Albany, and it's a lot of time the old-timers will tell me, oh, the old neighborhood around Pearl Street, and oh, the old synagogue. And I go around there, and there really isn't too much of a Jewish presence. Maybe you see a Jewish star on one of the old synagogues around downtown. But it really is important to understand the roots. It's very interesting, really, for any person to see where the Jewish community was and how vibrant it was. More kosher butcher shops, for example, more Jewish stores than we have really today. You can start in and talking about a little bit about the history.
Well, if anyone takes a tour in the old South End, you'll still see the Star of David on a few of the old synagogues, which they didn't take off. Franklin and Fulton, Franklin Street, there's one building there. It's stained glass. It's occupied as a residence now, but I was surprised that they didn't change the window. They left it that way.
Oh, they're probably very beautiful. That's why.
Oh, it is. That's why they like it so much. Yeah. See, in Temple Beth Emeth also, they had the big star on the top there. Now it's a black church, a church for the blacks. I heard recently, I think that they might take off the star. I hadn't checked recently to see it. But you'll still see quite a bit there by just going on a tour or browsing around the old South End. A lot of memories.
What else is there to see? Just a person by themselves would note anything? Or
very few.
If there's any, like you say, a few things they have a Jewish star on it, you can probably figure out that it's going to be Jewish, but there's any of these old stores that you can see. Sometimes I see old stores down there, and they're a little run down, and probably they're not Jewish anymore, but sometimes you see some Jewish names that are faded out from these stores, or they're boarded up now, and I say, well, that must have been some...
One unusual thing is where the pastures areas in South Pearl Street is a recent Peyton hardware store. That was originally one of the earliest buildings of Temple Beth Emeth. They changed the complete front of the building. You would never recognize it, but you go inside, see the old railings and all from the old Temple Beth Emeth. I have that in this book here, showing a horse-drawn trolley car going past the building, and it says the old synagogue building. And this comes out of a book around the 1850s.
That old ago?
So that's showing how far back.
Is there the oldest synagogue? Do you know the dates of these synagogues that go back, or they're probably not around anymore?
It's difficult for me to remember all those dates, but in this book here, I have dates, the names of the presidents, rabbis, and as much as I was able to dig up. Hannah Applebaum, she helped me dig up quite a bit through a lot of research. So in the book, I have also one section from the 1886 Book of Albany. It gives different religions. So the part of the Jewish religion, it's surprising the terminology they use as far as a Jewish clothing and all the way the tallis and all. It's unusual. So that is reproduced in this book, telling during that period, 1886. There's
Was it hard to look up the archives?
no.
The research did you have to do and to dig into the synagogue, each synagogue privately, or private people?
I approached every synagogue and temple, including an organization that was supposedly black Jews. I don't know whether they're authentic or not, but that's questionable. But I have them included in this book too. I went to one of their services on a Friday night. I was curious to see what it was like. They treated me like a king. Yeah. They wanted me to come back next morning, Saturday morning. So I told them I'd like to, but I can't. I'm going to Temple Israel services then. But I try to cover as much as possible from every synagogue except the one on Fulton Street. I found it very difficult to find any picture of the building that used to be there. But I do have a picture of the street, which is just 1 block long now. They tore down everything around Fulton Street. This is right off Madison Avenue. It's about 1.5 blocks long now. It's right near the housing project there.
Yeah, well, I say that also a lot of people say there was a lot of Jewish stores and shopkeepers, where now that there's the Empire State Plaza, that, of course, that's totally wrecked. I mean, other things you could say was taken over, and now you can see some kind of remnant. Obviously, everything was plowed under. Was that a part of the Jewish section?
Well, very little. Most of it was towards the south end. As far as where the Empire State Plaza is now, going west from Hudson Avenue and Broadway, so between Pearl Street going up the hill several blocks, there was some Jewish neighborhoods there, or buildings. Of course, that was the old market square. They used to sell their chickens and fruits and vegetables and everything else. I made sure I took pictures of everything there whatsoever before they tore that down. Nice. Someday maybe they use that in another book.
Yeah.
But that was the hub of the Jewish neighborhood, like from I'd say Hudson Avenue down to Arch Street. That was the really main part, especially Pearl Street, South Pearl Street. Then you go maybe 1 block or 2 east towards the river, and 1 block or 2 west up the hill. That was the main thing from as far back as you could remember. This book will tell
all the details about that.
Quite a bit. We dug up as much as we could from every synagogue, whoever could supply us with any material.
Does it seem like it was more vibrant, the Jewish life? Well, let's say the 1900s or 1920s, 30s, more synagogues, like comparatively the number of synagogues then compared to now.
Well, that was the real times. Well, some people will talk about memories and they'll go back and reminisce quite a bit, but now it's like a shadow. It's hardly anything, things change so much. In fact, I wonder if there's any Jewish people living in that area right now, because there's several synagogues which converted, they were taken over. They're either black churches or something else. Most the Jewish people moved up the hill, towards like New Scotland Avenue, Whitehall Road, and Hackett, and
move further
up the hill, because they say that's Rocky's place. He changed over,
the neighborhood, so
right.
They went on from then over here.
They tore down just a little too much, but what could you do? They call it progress. Well,
sometimes it is progress, but you lose a little bit of history in the.
Oh, they lost too much history.
But the Jewish life, for example, the butcher shops. If a person would, for example, take a person, so to speak, coming into like a time machine and walking in around the Jewish neighborhood then and walking around a Jewish neighborhood now, how much difference, and compare that kind of environment to that person? What would they see compared to what a person naturally would see now around New Scotland or Whitehall?
Well, one thing, we had 2 butchers to speak of, you might say. It was Kagan's and Hagaloo. Well, Kagan's was down on South Pearl Street. He's the oldest place that I know of. Now, he moved up. He's on now New Scotland, on Madison Avenue, right off Delaware Avenue. And his place is continuous right through the years. Hagaloo, I lost track of how long they've been here. But as far as Jewish delicatessens, well, I don't know if there's a really true Jewish delicatessen now left, but in the South End, there was a number of them. I remember when I first came to Albany, there was one there. I used to go there for meals often, and they treated me like a son. That's when I first started working for the newspaper.
They had kosher butcher shops. I mean, kosher restaurants and
butchers, fish stores, and fruits, vegetables, everything. Everything you can think of. Like the South Pearl Street, about 3 or 4 blocks, you get anything you want from the stores there. Now you have to do a bit of hunting.
Yeah, that's it. It's the trouble of people going, like you say, further in or scattering into the suburbs. That so many, like you say, old-timers, all right, maybe it's not authentic Judaism, but on the other hand, they'll remember, oh, the kosher bakery, and oh, the butcher shop around the corner, and even like the old man who ran the candy store, and the synagogue was around the corner. Everything was in this close-knit neighborhood. And you take a child today, and it has to be a drive, so his parents has to take them, and they go a few times a week into the synagogue for Hebrew school, or with the delivery, they don't see the kosher bakery because everything is mass-produced, and even the butcher shops, they don't see that much.
They will deliver. Some of the butcher shops will deliver.
Yeah, well, but it's good and it's convenient. Like say, it's modern progress. That's like you're saying, the difference, like the Empire State Plaza's here, well, that's fine and good and it's beautiful, but then you lose a little bit of history. So I think also people mass-produced and it's prepackaged, and people live in their suburbs and everything's beautiful. Maybe it looks like from the outside it's a better neighborhood, so to speak. It's a more wealthier neighborhood. On the other hand, look what you lost. That's what.
I know.
There's the other hand also, like that's what trying to express now.
One of the bakeries used to be on the south end of Zuckman's. They are up on Broadway near the big RCA building. You see a big dog up on the roof there. Yeah. So they've been continuous right through the years also. The New York bakery, they used to be across the street from Zuckman's. I don't know where they are now, but most of them just folded up because there was a Star Bakery. I remember a lot of the stores there, but very few of them are continuous, like still going on.
Yeah, what's the reason you think for this? It's just like parents, I mean, you're not going to see so many Jewish people, maybe this is the reason they're going into the business already. It's a hard business. It's hard to get up in the morning, like make a bakery, and to get up for a butcher shop, I know, and it's easier in certain senses to go to college and get yourself a degree and get yourself a nice white-collar job instead of really, in certain senses, working hard.
It's a transportation, too. Because the elderly Jewish people wouldn't travel to certain places at certain times. Makes it difficult, like for Friday and Saturday. It makes very inconvenient as far as getting what you need when you need it. But when you're on South Pearl Street, you go along those few blocks there, you get anything you want. One day you can get everything. But now, well, you have to go to different supermarkets or whatnot.
It's all there. It's all taken in.
Yeah, well, many supermarkets do have kosher foods now, but they're limited.
Yeah, they're limited, and the flavor's not there going into a supermarket compared to the old stores over here. Sometimes you go into, and of course we go into New York City a lot. It's only a few hours away, and just that flavor of a Jewish neighborhood is something special, really is, and you don't know how much you really lost until you see it again and see how it's nice to walk up and down the block and your friends are up in there. So like say, you get into a car, get into a supermarket, run in, run out, and you don't see and you don't know anybody, and people from all over. And, on one hand, I was saying it's convenient. No one's saying that it's a bad thing. But on the other hand, that's it. How much have you lost in social response and how much togetherness? And a lot of that, I say, is really the demise of the Jewish community. For example, it's just become so mobile. Everybody's running here and there, and no one has time to talk to each other and get together. Or the synagogue has not become the central focus. It's become maybe the television, maybe it's other social programs that they have. Yeah. But it's broken apart in the meantime.
Well, at Temple Israel, they seem to have a continuous flow of different programs to attract people for nearly every night of the week. They have so many different programs, so that kind of compensates a little bit for what you lost in the South End. In fact, if you pass Temple Israel, the back door is plastered with all kinds of signs at different events.
There's always something. But just to walk it's hard for children, though, today to really walk in there. And everything's dependent on the parents. You always said the parents have to be the chauffeurs. And you ask the parents, what do they do all day? They're carpooling from one time to another. A kid can't take a bicycle or just walk down the street. I mean, things happen, but it's just, like I say, I don't think the Jewish flavor is there. It's unfortunate, it really is. And people, went out into better homes and better neighborhoods, and they didn't understand what they were really leaving behind.
Well, see, Albany isn't the only place, because when I was living in Brooklyn, it was just as... Well, similar to it, because when I came back from military service after about 6 years, so I noticed my old neighborhood, it turned half black and Puerto Ricans and everything else. I didn't recognize it. So over here, it's changing just as much. You go downtown, you don't see what you used to see, you know.
Yeah, well, that's the changing neighborhoods. It's the story of America. And the wandering Jews, they're always going somewhere. It says they have
the wandering Jews.
They're in America, and in America they're changing neighborhoods. Well, you know, you should know that Albany is actually better off than in many communities. They're still wandering, they're still running away and trying to pick up. And like then the Jewish community, like the synagogues or the Jewish community centers and things like that, it's hard for them to keep up. They can't keep jumping suburbs as they're fleeing. At least, you know, I think, thank God that at least the Jewish community in Capital District's very stable in their neighborhoods. They're their neighborhoods, like you say, New Scotland, Whitehall, or the suburbs in Schenectady. They also have their strong community, and it's very stable. So that's important.
Even at the campus there, Rabbi Rubin, he tries to help out the Jewish students there. They have a place nearby there where they could meet, you know, and so
The
on.
Shabbos house.
So,
well, you see, campus is very important. Well, it's important for the community, but a lot of times it's mainly those students are non-capital district students. They're coming from New York City, Long Island, which, of course, any community has an obligation to, even for a visitor, so to speak. If you can say if the person who's visiting for 3-4 years, they're already a resident. But in a sense, they're transient. They're going back and forth, and then most of them are not going to stay. But still, a person, they're in our community, so that's important to invite them in also. But again, you say it's just the nearness. So SUNY campus, for example, well, it's close enough, and people say, oh, it's just a little car ride. But to walk and to have an environment, they're in their own environment, and they really, again, don't feel that the social life of the Jewish people. And again, we know that assimilation is really the cause of the demise of the Jewish community, but it starts really when kids go away from home. At home, that there was the Passover, there was the Hanukkah, there was all the holidays. They remember they go to campus. Again, what's there to remind them? The Jewish community, the Jewish, like I say, the bakery, the butcher shop, the society isn't around them. They just see, all they see is community. They see as a campus.
Well, some of the Jewish homes invite in students for certain holidays, different events.
No, it's important. No, it's good. No, I'm not saying it's good for what everybody does, but like I say, it's just that added flavor of, like you say, a Jewish community that has been lost about, I think, since like 30 or like maybe even let's say post World War II. It seemed that before the World War II, that there was just a neighborhood to keep people, you know, in their Jewish frame of mind. Now you have to really do something, or you have to be active, you have to go there. And it just, well, I mean, it's important also. A person should do anything. It shouldn't just be the flavor. But some people just really, I mean, you see how important it was, because a lot of old people, what do they remember? It was just the flavor of that old community. It was just these storekeepers there.
Occasionally, I try to meet some of the old-timers, and I try to videotape an interview.
Really?
Then you have first-hand information on what you're actually missing, because the old-timers could tell it best.
And they know the community. I enjoy also, like you say, I enjoy talking to the old-timers. It's, you know, they tell you what it was and what it has been. There was, I mean, probably it's hard statistics. I know it's very interesting, even now we're talking about 50 years, 100 years ago, but even through the past few thousand years, and the Jewish people in diaspora, very hard to get good statistics, because the Jewish people, I guess, weren't into it. Like in today's society, everybody wants to know inflation 0.01, and everything's a number, and everybody has to have a graph and a research about it, and I guess it wasn't just that important to the Jewish people to keep those numbers. But are there like different numbers, like you say, of the Jewish community 50 years ago, 100 years ago compared to today in the population, or is just those statistics don't exist?
Well, through this Jewish genealogy that I'm doing now, or working on, I'm acquiring books, records, and pictures. I have quite a library of my own, so I'm learning quite a bit that I've missed personally that I didn't know about before. But eventually, this will be turned over to Temple Israel for their library, so the public could come there anytime, do some research of either their ancestors or the old neighborhoods. They'll see things there that they may not have seen before or didn't know that was available. So I'm learning at the same time.
But that genealogy is only really goes to the 100 years of the like taking pictures. Oh, here's your cousin. Here's your second cousin. It's just only contained in the Capital District.
Well, most.
Or you're not going. I mean, people go back even to Europe, and nowadays it's really become an in thing to really look up somebody's roots. That can go back. I mean, some people have gone back to the 1400s, 1500s, really 500 years back.
I'm getting documents, pictures, and other things from other countries through connections with other people. And, like, for instance, some time ago, I have a large quantity of old photographs photographs of Israel and Germany, what's been going on there, and so I couldn't use them here, so I turned them over to, they have them in the Tel Aviv archives now. So now, at least they will make it available if someone here needs something, they might find their ancestors in those pictures.
Yeah, you never know where. Well, because people have cousins, like you say, they came from Europe, and some family went to Israel, some went to America, and people don't know. I told one person he had just a unique last name, and I was reading a book about the Holocaust, and I saw that name, and I can't believe there's, it's not like Cohn or Katz that there's 500,000 people with that name. So I told them about that, and you can look for links. I guess if you have a unique name, it probably would be easier. But the connections are there. You never know where the people are. And people, again, I say it's really a shame because maybe it isn't Judaism per se, but in a way it is, because what do we say every day? We're the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the genealogy is part of, that is Judaism. Why are we Jewish? Because of our parents, because of our grandparents, and it goes on. It's a golden chain. So in a way, it really is important. It's not the utmost important. It doesn't really make that much a difference who your exact answer was 200 years ago. But on the other hand, it is there, and it's important that this is what we are. I mean, people think we're products of the 1980s or the 20th century. No, we're products of something that's gone back thousands of years, and that's who we are. And there's the genes inside of us, and maybe we're more modern, our clothes, our automobiles, our computers, but what we are is just a connection, an extension, really, of all those generations. So, no, I think it's a very Jewish idea to look into someone's roots and
I enjoy
look back
it.
Over there.
It's a challenge. See how far back you can find people from your ancestors.
Have you done it for yourself? Your own?
Sure. And that's what got me started.
Oh, really?
I tried to see what I could find from my grandparents from Bucharest, Romania. I find it very difficult to trace them back, but I'm trying. In fact, at the library, I found a book of the Gerbers from the 1700s.
Is your family?
No, not my family, but I'm trying to check up to see what connection, if any, there were there. It was just the day before yesterday, my granddaughter came visit us from New York. She's going to school there. She brought a fellow with her, a boyfriend, and his grandparents' name is Gerber. Same as mine. I like that.
You never know.
Such a coincidence.
Maybe there'll be a connection there. You never know.
Well, let's hope, because every little bit, like a jigsaw puzzle.
It really is. That's what I say. I haven't done it myself, and I've read about it a little bit, and I really have a feeling it's one of the projects I'd like to do. My wife's family actually has a whole document that goes back even to 500-600 years, so that should be a lot easier to really research the family. But its family spreads out with geometric progressions. You can have fifth cousins down the line, and like you say, what's the last name? I mean, that's at least a link, a direct link. There may be something there.
Well, I've been getting piles of stuff from different genealogy groups around the country, because my name has been entered as starting a new organization here. So they've been sending me literature. Oh, I got a pile of stuff now from all over. But it helps. It helps everyone.
Well, that's all the connections. Just information, that's really all it is.
Yeah, we all help each other.
That people, I think, have the wrong connotation that they think that the Holocaust in Europe really destroyed, the Germans destroyed all the records in Europe of the Jews and a lot of cemeteries. But, I've read, again, I haven't done this. I really like to work on it myself. And I think, I also find it very interesting, an idea of a project. I'm sure it'd be even more interesting, like you say, once you get into it and you start finding one more piece of the puzzle and even more about your roots. But they say there's still a lot of cemeteries back there, and I think it's really a wrong idea to think that, I go back to Europe. They know their grandparents or the Bubbins are in Europe. Well, forget Europe. It's a dead end, because after the Holocaust, there's no more Jews there, and there's no more records. And the Germans did destroy a lot of records, but I think that there's a lot of cemeteries there, and you can look at, the hometowns if you hear about it, and go back to the old hometown cemetery, look over a grave marker and find something there, and records are still there also. So it's not a dead end in any case at all.
The Mormons in Salt Lake City, they're researching a lot of things in different countries, so that way the Jewish people are able to get more information through their library. They have a library here in Loudonville. It's quite a library. You'd be surprised that they have a lot of things of Jewish interest there too.
Local Jewish interest, or?
Well, from worldwide interest, because they operate as a library branch of the one in Salt Lake City, which is their main one. So I visited the one at Loudonville here. I was surprised at the information I dug up from Bucharest, Romania. You really? Just from their library alone.
Well, you got to use all research. You got to. It's like being like an agent, a Secret Service agent, looking up and looking for the different pieces and the information from wherever you can get them.
Yeah, well, I enjoy that because being that I worked with a newspaper most of my life, so the research is like a challenge.
It's like the news story, a
like
scoop over here. Yeah,
detective work.
Story. That's good. It's interesting. Have a lot of people have approached you? They're interested.
Oh, sure.
Like I say, really it's a new. I don't say it's a new thing exactly, but it's like becoming an in thing to look at someone's genealogy, where they're coming from. So you get a big interest about that.
Yeah, pretty soon we hope to have another big meeting. See how many people can get down there, down to our meeting who will have similar interest. So each one will bring some other information and we exchange.
Can work on. It probably would be easier to work in, Capital District, like I said before, maybe a family from 70, 80 years, maybe they wouldn't know, hey, is a second cousin, a third cousin. Instead of going back even hundreds of years, just containing the people. Well, it wouldn't help for me. I'm not saying I'm only here for a few years, but hey, for the hometown people, that people who have been living in Capital District, or they know their bubbians, 80 grew up here, and maybe they've even lost links with, I've told people, oh, you know him? Yeah, he's my second cousin, and I haven't seen him for 5 years. So, but even then, people just look at their immediate family. Not so immediate, I'm saying second cousin, third cousins, but probably would be interesting for them just to find out about their just regular circle.
Well, there's going to be April the 9th in Washington Avenue Public Library there. There's going to be an annual event there for another genealogical organization. They use the wall as a big bulletin board. Everyone puts some notes and things there. They exchange information.
Yeah, really.
They come from different states here. That'll be something interesting.
It's a very central idea. Well, you have to do that. You have to get a central organization to work on that.
We all help each other,
and get to the.
Eventually, maybe we make our goal.
All right, one last word, Mr. Gerber. What about the future, the Jewish history? Are you still revamping it, or you pretty much came to a full idea of the history?
I'd like to get someone to take over, have a second printing or of volume 2, because there's a lot of material that didn't go in here, and since the book was published, people tell me a lot of things that should have been in there. So if and when I find the right person, well, I would gladly help them. If someone else wants to put out a volume 2.
Once you give out one, I know there's always somebody out of the woodwork comes up, hey, here's some tidbit of information, another picture, another little idea that they could really add on and to be useful. So those things probably will constantly always going to be something, appendixes and footnotes to new ideas.
Revise.
Yeah, revising. That's probably is a never-ending project and something.
I have a lot more that should have gone in here, but you can only get so much in there.
Yeah, be an encyclopedia already.
Limited, the cost, etc. At the time. This was kind of a rush job. It was less than a year it took to put this together, but still, did the best we could.
Yeah, as I look through, it's a good idea, and I think that's important, especially someone living here. It's interesting, like myself, just even a newcomer to the Capital District. It's interesting to know that you're living in a place. What was the history of the situation? You have only one little city in the whole world that you're living in. You should know the history of it, especially for a Jewish person. It's interesting, Jewish community, and surely for someone who, like you say, has the Bubby and Zeda here, and has their grandparents, and they're here, and to see where the neighborhoods that their parents grew up in, or the grandparents, or surely for themselves to reminisce and to remember the memories, I think, are important. So I think it's a useful source that I think if you've given to the Jewish community, and I thank you, Mr. Gerber, for coming here today and talking it over, and maybe there's always more ideas coming up. We'll have to talk again some other time.
Sure. Well, I look forward to it. I'll have plenty more to show you and talk about. I'm always digging up more information.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.